And base ches.
Go ahead.
Okay. Out of here. Okay. All right. If one slaughters as a sacrifice in the name of mountains, a sacrifice to bulls, to hills, and the sacrifice to seas, as a sacrifice to rivers, as a sacrifice to deserts, very good. To deserts, the slaughtering is invalid. Two hold the knife and slaughter. One slaughters as a sacrifice to one of these things, and one slaughters for a legitimate purpose. The slaughtering is invalid. I know some people who might hold dessert as a a thing to pray to. I said, I know people who might hold desserts as a thing to pray to, to hold
deserts, right.
Yeah. We slaughter neither into seas, nor into rivers, nor into vessels, but one may slaughter into a pool of water or a boat on top of vessels. And we may not slaughter into a pit under any circumstances, but one may make a pit in his house in order that the blood should flow into it. But he may not do so in the street, so that he does not lend support to the practice of the sectarians. If one slaughters an animal for the designation of an olah offering, a shalom offering, a guilt offering, or in case of doubt, a Pesach offering or a Thanksgiving offering, the slaughtering is invalid, but Shimon declares it valid. If two hold the knife in slaughter, we use one for one of these designations and one for legitimate purposes, their slaughter is invalid. If one slaughters an animal for the designation of a sin offering, the definite guilt offering, a firstborn, or an animal tithe, or a substitution in slaughtering is valid. This is the general rule. Whatever can be brought as a vow or a donative offering, if one slaughters it as a designation, it is prohibited. But whatever cannot be brought for a vow or for a donative offering, if one slaughters it for designation, it is valid.
Okay. All right, Perek Gimel, Elu Treifus. All right, a very technical little perek over here about the different injuries to an animal that render it a treifa. Okay, Elu Treifus babahema, nekubas haveshet, a puncture of the food pipe, the esophagus, upsukas hagargeres, or a windpipe that has been severed. So you notice that it's not just a hole in the windpipe, because you know that if somebody's choking, one of your sort of radical courses of action to save them can be an emergency tracheotomy. You basically just make a hole in the front of their throat so they can breathe through the hole. Okay, so that's not considered a treifa. A person can survive with a hole in their windpipe, but the food pipe, not so much. Okay, and unfortunately, now that I think about it, I can speak from personal experience, because that was what my mother-in-law, Leah Shalom, died of. She had a ruptured esophagus, and it was. I mean, she spent 101 days in intensive care, and they did whatever they could, and all these operations that they could do, but ultimately there was just really nothing they could do.
They couldn't sew it back up. They couldn't.
Yeah, so I mean, they did, but it was. I mean, they basically stuck a feeding tube into her to bypass the esophagus. But at any rate, that was the end of it.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, nikav krum shalmoach. If there's a thin membrane around the brain. And if that is punctured, that is also a treifa. Nikav halev lebeis chalalo. If there's an external hole in the heart that goes all the way through to the cavity. Nispera hashidra v'nifsak hachuchila. If the spine is broken and the cord is severed. Okay. Nitla hakaved v'lo nishtai hamena klum. If the liver is entirely removed. If the lung is punctured, or shechasra, or even if it's missing a piece. Rabbi Shimon omer ad shetinakev lebeisa symphonos, and Rabbi Shimon says the hole has to reach into the beisa symphonos, is I guess the bronchioles. Let me see how is it put over here, the beisa symphonos. He says it's only a treifa if it reaches the to the tracheoles, I think. Okay. Nikva hakeva. The keva is the stomach. Is if there's so the cow's got 4 different stomachs. So there's a keva, and if the is I don't know what the technical term is for that. Actually, the Gehati translation I've got here will give me the correct term. Nikva Hakeva. Yes, second. The more, he calls it. Okay, if the more is punctured. Okay, or Nikva Hamara. Mara is the gallbladder. Nikvu Hadakin, or the small intestines are punctured. Hakaris apnimis shenikva. The karis is the innermost stomach. It's the large pouch into which the food passes from the gullet. Okay, or shenikra rov hachitzona, or the majority of the outer stomach is there's the flesh that hugs most of the outer stomach if it's torn. Rabbi Yehuda says Hagadola tefach. If the large part of the what's it called, if it's a large animal, if it's torn a tefach, then it's a treifa, and if it's a small animal, then we go by the majority. Hemses, which is, I guess, so it sounds very similar to omasim, which is what they translate over here. Hemses or beta kosas, which is called the reticulum. And honestly, I'm not going to dig too deep into a car to work out what these things are myself. But any of them, shenikvu lachutz, that are punctured externally, all of these are called treifa. Nafla minagag. Now, what happens if an animal had a fall? We say from the roof, because that's just one possibility. But any kind of fall, nishtabru rov tzalaoseha, and most of its ribs are broken. Udrus hazaev, or an animal that's been bitten by a wolf. All of these are considered a treifa. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, drus hazaev bedaka udrus ha'ari begasa. He says that if you've got a large animal that was bitten by a wolf, that's not a treifa. It's only a small animal that's going to be rendered a treifa from a wolf's bite. But when it comes to a lion, even a large animal becomes a treifa from that. Then the same thing with birds. If a nate, I think, is a vulture, right? A hawk.
A sparrow hawk.
A nate is a hawk, right? So also, so it's a smaller predator. Ba'of hadak, with a small bird, that becomes a treifa. Udrusas hagas, ba'of hagas. And if you have a large bird predator, that can even render a large bird like a chicken into a treifa. Ze'aklal. Your general rule is kol she'ein kamoha chaya. Your general rule with treifas is anything that a wound like this is not going, the animal's not going to see out the year, is considered a treifa.
I'm trying to see what this is and look up here. Something called a gas.
Gas is a large animal.
Large animal? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was clawed by a gas in the case of a large fowl, it says.
Yeah, that's just a large bird. You imagine you have a large eagle coming and injuring it. Okay. Base. Eluk sheros b'behema. So the following things are not treifas. Okay. Nikva hagergeres. As I just mentioned, if the windpipe is punctured, that's not a treifa. Or shenistika, even if it's slit. Ad kama techzar. But we're talking about a vertical slit, because a horizontal slit is very quickly going to become the majority, and that's going to be a treifa. Okay, but so we're talking about a vertical cut down the windpipe is not a treifa. Ad kama techzar, how much can it be lacking? Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer ad ke'isar ha'Italki. If it's missing up to the size of an Italian isar coin. Okay. Nifchasa hagulgoles. If the skull is missing a piece, but the brain's membrane has not been damaged. Nikav alev, what happens if the heart has been punctured, but it doesn't reach the central cavity. Nishbara shidra, if the spine was broken, but the spinal cord was not severed. Nitla hakaved, if the liver was mostly removed, just a kazayas of liver remains. And as one who's been through hepatitis, I learned a lot about this, that the liver is a remarkable organ that can regenerate itself. It's the only one that regenerates.
You got hepatitis? You got hepatitis?
I had hepatitis A, yeah.
Wow. Out of the blue?
I was a kid. That was pretty miserable.
Yeah.
I was in bed for 5 weeks.
5 weeks? Wow. My gosh.
Yeah.
You just caught it by
yeah, it's a contagious it's contagious. It's so
wow. Okay, we're doing this by Zoom. So
I mean, it's been what are we talking about? I was like 12 years old. So
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's long enough that I'm not contagious anymore.
I'm sure you're frightened your patients. Your parents must be really frightened. Wow.
No, it wasn't. Hep A is not generally dangerous. It's just really a horrible experience. Anyway.
All right, the liver was removed, but
okay, so the liver is still partially there. Hem says the omasam ubeta cosus and the reticulum sheniklu zeletochze. They're neighboring each other. So if the puncture goes from one to the other, then they're actually still sealed, and therefore it's not called a treifa. Nitzala tchol. The tchol is the spleen. Nitluha klayos. Even if the kidneys are gone. Now that's one that I would not have expected to see there, because kidneys are also rather a close issue to me, and I'm pretty sure that without kidneys you're not going to live very long. But nonetheless, the Mishna says that that this is not considered a treifa. Maybe the animal goes on dialysis.
There's no kidney. There's no removal of the bad part of the blood and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing that happens.
Yep. No, I mean, if your kidneys stop functioning, it's like certain death within days.
Right.
So I don't actually understand how the kidneys can be considered not a treifa, but okay. Nital lechi hatachton, if the lower jaw is missing. Nitla ha'aim shela, the aim is the womb.
Right.
Okay. V'charusa bidei shemaim. Charusa bidei shemaim means that it was if the lung dried up by the hand of heaven, but like for example, it had a fright from thunder or lightning and made the lung contract. But if it's frightened by an active man, it's a treifa. So the Gemara goes into detail on how to determine the cause of the defect, which we won't get into here. Okay. Hagluda. Now, gluda is an animal that was stripped of its hide. Okay, I don't want to think too hard about how that happened. Maybe as a result of sores in the course of its work. Rabbi Meir machshev v'chachamim poslin. Rabbi Meir. Okay, so this is so the chachamim agree that this is now a treifa. I'm kind of inclined to agree with that, but who am I to disagree with Rabbi Meir? Anyway, Mishna Gimel.
A strange Mishna.
Yeah.
All right.
Treifos ba'of. So now, having done behemoths, let's go on to birds. Again, nekuvas haveshet, a punctured windpipe, sukas gargeris, or a severed windpipe. Hikata chulda, a weasel bit it or struck it. Al rosha makom she'osa osa treifa, in a place that makes it into a treifa. Nikava korkavan, if the stomach has been punctured. Nikvu hadakin, or the small intestines. Nafla la'ur, if it fell into a fire. V'nechmeru b'nei me'eha, and its intestines were singed. Imirukim pesulim, if they're singed to the point where they've gone a little bit green, this is called a treifa. Imadomim, if they're still red, however, it's kosher. Drasa, if it was trampled, is that right? Drasa, yeah, if a person trod upon it. Or trafa bakotel, or knocked it against the wall, or sheritzatata behema mefarkeses, or if an animal crashed it and it's still jerking. But even in these cases, its organs may have been broken. And then it stayed for 24 hours. It was still alive for 24 hours, and only after that he shechted it. That's called kosher.
Okay.
Okay, a rather gruesome start to the day, but there we go.
Okay. All right. We are on to Menachos. Here we go. Hey, if he said, I take upon myself to bring wine, he may not bring less than 3 lugim. Oil, he may not bring less than a log. Rabbi says, these 3 lugim I specify, but I do not know what I specified. He must bring like the amount brought on the day with the greatest requirement. If one said, I take upon myself to bring an ola, he brings a lamb. If Rabbi Elazar ben Nazariah says either a pigeon or a young dove, I specify from cattle that I did not know what I specified. He must bring a bull and a calf. From animals, I do not know what I specified. He must bring a bull, a calf, a ram, a kid, and a lamb. I specified, but I do not know what I specified. He adds to them a pigeon and a young dove. For a mana, a calf he must bring.
You've skipped.
Let's get the page.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. From animals, I do not want to. I must bring a bull, a cow, a male cow, and a female calf, a ram, and a male cow and a female kid, a male goat and a female goat, a male lamb and a female lamb. If he said, I take upon myself to bring an ox, he must bring it and its libation offering for a mana. A calf.
No, that's it. We're done.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was Mishna Zayin. We've done three Mishnahs now.
Yes. Okay. All right. Sorry. You're welcome. When they came to Nov and to Givon, the Bamos were again permitted. The most holy offerings were eaten within the curtains, and offerings of lesser holiness in all the cities of Israel. When they came to Yerushalayim, the Bamos were again forbidden and were never again permitted, and it was the inheritance. The most holy offerings are eaten within the curtains, and the offerings of lesser holiness and Ma'aser Sheni within the wall surrounding Yerushalayim. All offerings which were consecrated during a period of Bama offering prohibitions and which were offered outside of a period of Bama prohibition are subject to a positive commandment and a negative commandment, and one incurs karas on their account. If they were consecrated during a period of Bama permissibility, if they were offered during a period of Bama prohibition, they are subject to a positive commandment and a negative commandment. The one does not incur karas on their account. If one consecrated them during a period of Bama prohibition, but offered them during a period of Bama permissibility, they are subject to a positive commandment, but are not subject to a negative commandment.
Okay, that's it.
We are going on to
Menachos.
Menachos again.
Okay, Avodah Zarah.
Okay, Vav. In a place which it is accustomed to sell small livestock to idolaters, it is permitted to sell them, and in a place which it is accustomed not to sell, it is permitted to sell. But in every place it is forbidden to sell large livestock, calves or foals, whether whole or maimed. Rabbi Yehuda permits in the case of maimed a maimed one, and one ben B'Sera permits in the case of a horse. One may not sell them bears or lions or anything that has in it the potential to cause injury to the public. One might not build with them a basilica, a scaffold, or a stadium or a platform, but one may build with them mamos and bathhouses, which when they reach the vault in which they place an idol, it is forbidden to build. One may not make ornaments for an idol, such as necklaces, earrings, or finger rings, and Eliezer says for payment it is permitted. One may not sell them anything attached to the ground, but one may sell it when it is cut. Rabbi Yehuda says you may sell it to him on the condition that it be cut. One may not rent them houses in Eretz Yisrael, and needless to mention fields. In Syria, one may rent them houses, but not fields. And outside of Eretz Yisrael, one may sell them houses or rent them fields. These are the verb of Reb Meir. Rabbi Rashi says, in Eretz Yisrael, one may rent them houses, but not fields. And in Syria, one may rent them houses and rent them fields. And outside of Eretz Yisrael, one may sell them both these and those. Okay.
Nazir.
For contamination from the following sources of tumor, the nazir must shave from a corpse, or an olive bulk of a corpse, or an olive bowls of netzel, or a ladle full of decayed corpses, or the spinal column, or on the skull, or a limb severed from a corpse, or the limb severed from a living body that hasn't on it sufficient flesh, or half a cob of bones, or half a log of blood. Whether the contamination is transmitted by contact, carrying, or on a roof, or if a tumor from a bone the size of a barley grain, whether its contamination is transmitted by contact or by carrying, for these and dozens shaves, sprinkles on the third or seventh day, performs forfeits the previous days, and does not remain counting until he becomes ta'or and brings his sacrifices. But for tumor translated by branching canopies or protrusion in a field in which I gave a brave of this cloud over, or in the land of the nations, or in a coffin cover, or the coffin, a quarter log of blood, or a tent, or a quarter log of bones, or utensils that corpse is that touch a corpse, or for the days of the Metzora counting, or the days of his confirmed Cyrus. For these the Nazir does not shave, but he sprinkled on the third and seventh days, and he does not forfeit the preceding days, and he began to count right away, and he has to sacrifice. In truth, they said the days of Azav or Azava and the days of confinement of the Torah, these are counted for him. I can't read today. Rabbi Eliezer said in the name of Rabbi Yeshua, any tumor from a corpse of which a Nazir shaves, one is liable because of it entering the temple, and any tumor from a corpse of which a Nazir does not shave, one is not liable for entering the temple. Rameir said this should not be more lenient than tumor contracted from a creeping thing. Rabbi Kiva says, I reasoned before Rabbi Eliezer for a bone the size of a barley grain, which does not contaminate a person by way of a toad. I'm sorry. It does not contaminate a person by the way of a roof. The Nazir shaves for touching it or carrying it. For a quarter log of blood, which contaminates a person even by way of a roof, it is not clear that a Nazir should shave for touching it or carrying it. He said to me, what is this? Akiva said, we cannot reason here by a kavakoma. When I came and related these things to Rabbi Shua, he said to me, you have spoken well, and so have they said as an oral law.
Okay. But this is not the
but so they have said
it's a good story, but we have a lot of Moshe Sinai that is not the lot is not like you.
Orla. Okay. Hey. Eliezer ben Yaakov says a woman who is the daughter of a proselyte may not enter into the priesthood unless her mother is an Israelite. But the proselytes are freed whole bondsmen even to the 10th generation, unless their mother is an Israelite. An administrator, an agent, or a bondsman, a woman, and a tumtum, or an androgynous brings do not recite, because they cannot say that which you have given me, O Lord. He who bows 2 trees in his fellows. I can't read.
Buys.
He who buys 2 trees in his fellows brings but does not recite. Rameir says he brings and recites. If the well dried up, the tree was cut down. He brings but does not recite. Rabbi Yehuda says he brings and recites. Rabbi Yehuda is a Sukkot, he brings and recites. And for Sukkot stuff Hanukkah, he brings but does not recite. Rabbi Yehuda ben Sarah says he brings and recites. Where he set aside the Bikurim and holds his field, he brings but does not recite. And the other from the same kind he does not bring. But from another kind he brings and recites. And Rabbi Yehuda says from the same kind he also brings and recites.
Okay. And Kara.
Yes. If someone immerses a utensil for mekatos in water that is not suitable for consecration, he must dry it. If he immerses in the water that is suitable for consecration, he does not need to dry it. If he immerses the utensil in order to consecrate water to it, in it, either case he must dry it. Regarding a gourd shell that one immersed in water that is not suitable for consecration, one may consecrate mekatos in it until it becomes tameh. If the gourd shell subsequently became tameh, we may not consecrate mekatos in it. Rabbi Shua says if one may consecrate mekatos in the shell, initially he should also be able to consecrate mekatos in it at the end. And if one may not concentrate mekatos in it at the end, he should also not be able to consecrate mekatos in it initially. In either case, one may not add consecrated water to it. Regarding a tube that was cut for katos, all are qualified for katos. That's good page. Yeah. Let me go back. Regarding a tube that was cut for katos purposes, Rabbi Eliezer says he may immerse it immediately. Rabbi Shua says he must render the tube tamei and only then immerse it. All are qualified to consecrate katos except for a deaf mute, attention deranged person, and a minor. Rabbi Yehuda rules a minor qualified, but disqualifies a woman and an androgen.
Okay, and we are done.
Sorry about my reading today. I don't know.
Okay.
Start earlier. This is not. Okay.
Okay.
I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Thank you. Thank you.